Hey everyone, this is John from EastCoastArmory.com, and I'm here today with a model showcase video for this 1/35th scale German initial production Tiger I. Now this video is going to be a little bit different compared to my other smaller scale build videos, as rather than just discussing one model, there are two models built in identical condition that are going to be discussed in this video. The reason for that is that the model that you see here is built for commission and belongs to a private collector, and the model over here was built for my own personal collection and is not for sale and or purchase. As I often mention in these smaller scale build videos, I often take on commission build projects ranging from scales from 1/35th scale all the way up to 1/6 scale. As for availability and pricing information for a build to the same specs that you see here, that information would be best by contacting me through the email address listed below, which is info@eastcoastarmory.com. Now, in case some of my older viewers and subscribers are getting a little sense of deja vu, that is because this is not the first iteration of this pattern of Tiger I that I have built and have posted on this channel. In fact, I have done this exact same build in two other incarnations, one as a 1/6 scale scratch build static vehicle, and the other was a 1/16 scale radio-controlled Henlong conversion. Both of those videos, as well as an entire video series on the 1/6 scale version, can be found on my video listings, as well as pictures are posted on both the EastCoastArmory.com website as well as on the EastCoastArmory.com Facebook page. The customer in which contracted me to build the tank for him saw the 1/16 scale video, liked the model so much that he wanted to have one built to the same specs, however in 1/35th scale that you see here. As for the models themselves, they are built mostly out of the box, however do feature a few little tweaks and mods that were made to them, of which we'll be going over in this video. Before I go any further with the video, let's go ahead and take a quick walk around the model. These two models here are the ubiquitous German Tiger I heavy tank. This is really a vehicle that doesn't necessarily need a whole lot of introduction. As we all know, the Tiger I was the German Army heavy tank of World War II. The vehicles entered into production and saw service from 1942 up until the end of the war in 1945. In order to deal with the heavier armored vehicles found in the Soviet Union, as well as being developed by the other Allied countries, the Germans went ahead and developed the Tiger I. Tiger I featured a very heavy armored hull and turret, as well as a very powerful 88mm main gun. The tank weighed in at 54 tons, with the majority of the weight being that in armor plate. The vehicles themselves were gasoline powered via a water-cooled V12 Maybach engine. At first would have been the HL210, and then later on, of course, the HL230. When the contract for the Tiger I was announced, two firms went ahead and answered the specs. The first was Porsche and the second was Henschel. The Porsche design featured a unique gas-electric hybrid style system, while the Henschel vehicle was more of a traditional standard tank layout. During the trials, the Henschel design proved to be a more viable option compared to the Porsche offering, and the Henschel firm won the contract. That vehicle went ahead and went into further research and development, with the final iteration being that of the Tiger I that we all know. Like I mentioned before, the vehicle was very well armored. As for the armament, you had the standard 88mm gun, which was proven to be a very effective anti-tank weapon. The vehicle also featured two 7.62mm MG34T machine guns. The first one being coaxed to the main gun in the turret, and the second one was located in a ball mount in the hull for that of the radio operator. The tanks were very effective on the battlefield and proved to be one of the most feared enemy tanks that the Allies would be running into. However, the vehicle did suffer from limited production due to the scarcities of raw materials, as well as due to the overall complexity of the tank's design. In addition to this, the tanks, when first fielded, were rushed into production and into fielding, which did leave for lots of mechanical issues and breakdowns on the earlier production units. What makes this vehicle unique is that this particular model here is that representing of an initial production Tiger 1. The initial production Tiger is literally one of the first production batches to come off of the product line and enter into field use. These Tigers here would have been found in the Leningrad area in 1942. What is very interesting about the initial pattern of Tiger 1 is the fact that since it predates the other production versions, there are certain key details and features which we come to think of as standard for a Tiger 1 tank that are absent on this vehicle here. Such details such as the side skirts as well as even the bustle bin were not yet developed on this period of the tank's development. This model here is replicating that of Tiger number 100. What is unique about Tiger number 100 is that it is the first Tiger 1 which was captured by the Allies during World War II. The Russians captured this vehicle and widely showcased it in numerous newsreel reports. The vehicle survived in Russian hands all the way up to the end of the war. However, in the post-war period of the 1950s, the vehicle was reportedly sent to a scrapyard and was destroyed. Before we continue with the video, let's go ahead and take a step back to when the models was first started in order to get a good idea on what the kit contents were in order to get the model built up to the specs that you see here. And here are the models just before the start of the project. For the base starter kit, I will be utilizing this 1/35 scale Dragon initial production Tiger 1 kit. The kits that you see here are all plastic, however they do feature some photo etch components, of which I'll be going over when I crack open the boxes. The models themselves, the one that you see here is for my own personal collection. This one here has been sitting in the stash for a few years, which you can tell by the shop dust and from the pretty much banged up and dinged up condition of the box. This particular kit here was actually used for a few years as a builder's aid for the 1/6 scale Leningrad Tiger 1 initial build that I did a few years ago, as well as a few of the other 1/6 scale builds that you've seen posted on the video listings. This kit here, the one that's going to be built for commission, this one here was acquired and procured off of eBay. The kits themselves were released by Dragon back in 2010. Since then, these kits here have become somewhat harder to find and are not as plentiful as they were a few years ago. The kits are actually a rebox as well as a upgrade from the original initial production Tiger 1 that was released by Dragon. That model was released, I believe, back in 2007 or 2008 and featured a separate box art. The box art that model featured was this one over here. Now this one here is from their 1/72 scale kit, however the box art is exactly the same. It's also important to note that since then, this version of the kit with this box art is very sought after and fetches premium prices on the secondhand market like eBay and other sources. Back in 2010, they went ahead and added a few more additions to the kit, releasing it in this configuration here with this box art. However, the kits do share the same components. Starting with the box art, we have here a initial production Tiger with a snow pattern. A identical vehicle is in the back. On the plains of Russia, as you can see, there is a Russian 1910 Maxim on a wheeled carriage near a foxhole. The box art is your typical Ronald Volstead work, which, like I've mentioned in the past, are always exquisitely drawn and rendered. As for the rest of the kit's graphic design, it's that of your average Dragon kit of the period. We have here the separate versions that you can build the tank as, copyright information, as well as some CAD drawings of the features that this kit does contain. This is also true for the back panel, which again goes into a lot more detail of the features as well as the interior functions and details that are found with this kit. Since both kits are the same, I'll go ahead and open up the one from my collection. Open up the box, you can see the kit contents. Like I said before, the kit is an all plastic kit. There is no resin components supplied with the model. Starting with the first runner, this is most obviously that of the turret, as well as the side panels and front armor plate. As you can see really quick, this is most clearly that of initial production Tiger due to the dual pistol port arrangement. Anyone who's a fan of the Tiger 1 will tell you that later incarnations of the Tiger replaced the secondary pistol port with that of a large escape hatch. Moving on, takes us to this runner here, which is most clearly that of the top deck. It has all of its center weld features, which is something that is found on contemporary renditions of the Tiger and were absent on older versions that were released throughout the years. As you can see, this model also has some fan and gas tank detailing, which is a very nice touch, specifically for a model of this scale. Going down further takes us to the suspension. We have here two options for gun mantlets. We have here the rear grille work, and this is a torsion bar layout. I believe that the torsion bar features for both interior detailing as well as the model also features an actual sprung torsion bar suspension. On the reverse side, we have here the actual road wheels, which is what one would expect for the Tiger 1. Going further deeper into the box takes us to more components, as well as various options which are supplied with the kit. Going down to the bottom takes us to the sprockets and the rear idlers, as well as other miscellaneous components that are for this build. And here we have the lower hull. Now, I'm not up to date to Dragon 1/35 scale Tigers, however, I believe that the current generation of Tigers from Dragon utilizes the same lower hull component. Going further down to the box takes us to a panel that has some equipment on it. Here we have some spare track links, a metal steel tow cable, some clear plastic components, most likely for the visors for the periscopes on the copula and on the hull. And here it takes us to the model's photo etch. We have here the front mud flaps with the German diamond plate, and these look like guards for the actual fan housings themselves, as well as the fan duct. Other photo etch is also included, along with a decal sheet. Going down further takes us to the grill mesh guards, as well as a spring, most likely for the recoiling gun barrel, and what appears to be the shovel cup, which is used for the spade end of the shovel, and what also appears to be two small springs. More information on that is to follow. Going down to the bottom of the box takes us to the track. Now, one very nice feature on this kit is the fact that it has the one single piece vinyl tracks, compared to the older style Dragon kits, which had individual track links. The vinyl tracks, in my opinion, are much more superior. As you can see, there are, yes, 3 bands of track. The reason for this is because of the initial production Tiger. The initial production Tigers actually had non-reversible tracks. This is a feature that was quickly dropped as the war progressed. However, it is a nice feature that Dragon gives you this option with the kit. Again, more information on that is to come when the build is completed. Here we have a quick little diagram and painting guide for the model. And of course, no kit is complete without a set of instructions. Set of instructions look to be okay. It's typical Dragon. As you can see, just like typical Dragon kits, you do have areas of runners which are blacked out, which will not be used, and appear to have all the components on them. If there's any hiccups with the instructions, I will more likely be illustrating them in the completed portion of the model in the video. Now, both of the models are built literally identical to each other with the same type of paints, same type of weathering, and the same type of detailing. The only difference between the two are the exhaust stacks, which I'll be going over when we get to that point. Starting with the model suspension. The suspension on the model that you see here is all stock from the Dragon kit. The stock Dragon suspension is very nicely done and is nicely rendered. It is fully detailed. One unique feature that is found on the stock Dragon kit is that of a functional torsion bar suspension. The functional torsion bar suspensions is something that a lot of more modern and contemporary super kits have been including from such makers as Dragon, TriStar, and Bronco, to name a few. The feature is good in concept and is a pretty nifty idea, specifically the way it was done. I can't really speak for the TriStar and Bronco kits, however, on the Dragon kit, the way it was done on this particular version of Tiger here was that it's an actual modification to the standard torsion bars which were supplied with the first run of this kit that came out a few years ago. In which the original kit was designed to have a static suspension, like you would see on just about any other model tank kit. And Dragon went ahead and modified it to have him, instead of gluing the swing arms directly to the hull, you glue them to a torsion bar. And that torsion bar gets fixed to the inside of the hull, thus giving you some springy suspension. The first problem that you're going to really encounter with the functional suspension has to do with the track itself. Now, if you're working with a workable track link set, like from Fruli or Model Casting or any of the other manufacturers, it may be a little bit better. However, if you're working with the stock vinyl track like I have here, the one-piece single track, you're going to need to mount the track directly to the road wheels in order to get the illusion of the track tension and the track sag that we have here. When you mount the wheels to the track, if the pieces have to actuate, this is going to alter where the track are glued to the road wheels, and it's going to cause problems. And if you don't glue the track to the road wheels, your track is going to look very taut and is not going to have a very realistic appearance to it. So right there, the functional suspension is not really that practical. A more serious problem with the suspension is the fact that it is far too frail in order to have it practically be able to function. The suspension was assembled on both of the tanks that are in this video. However, during just handling of the model and during construction, it was found that the suspension not only would it have sagging issues, as the small little polystyrene torsion bars are not necessarily strong enough to hold up the weight of a completed model, but also the way the kit is designed, where you have the swing arm that glues directly to the torsion bar, you're talking about tolerances and surface areas that are so small that first, any drop of glue that's slightly too excessive is going to gum up the works and prevent it from working. The second thing is, if you just have enough glue to mount it in, that it's still functional, however, it keeps it in place, you will not have a whole lot of functionality, as after 4 or 5 bends of the piece, the glues will eventually pop on you. And if you have a popped swing arm off of the torsion bar, it's going to lead to many, many issues with the rest of the tank's tension, as well as even the height. On the two vehicles that you see here, the suspension was anchored in place and what is a set suspension for the way you see the vehicle here, which is at rest, which is just a standard static model tank. Now, if you're doing this vehicle in a diorama format, I guess the functional suspension might be a little bit more beneficial, as you could mold the suspension to your terrain and then adjust the track accordingly. As for the rest of the suspension, like I said before, the pieces are all built out of box. All of the road wheels are nicely detailed, and all the Zerk fittings have been painted red, which is common for Tiger 1s. The track, like I said before, is the vinyl one-piece track, which comes with the kit, and is a very nice detailed rendered piece, specifically for the media it's represented in. The track also has these small little mud slits, which are found on the teeth, which is also a very nice touch done by Dragon. The tracks time around the sprocket perfectly, and being made out of DS-styrene, mold and articulate and mount well to the rest of the suspension to the way you see it here. One more feature about the track is the fact that the Dragon kit goes ahead and gives you a non-reversible track for the right-hand side of the model. Now, this is a feature which is specifically found on the very initial and first batch patterns of Tiger, was that the track on this version here was not symmetrical. The original Tigers actually had a specific right and left-hand track. This is a very small piece of detailing that is not really known or even remotely seen unless you're a die-hard Tiger fan. Now, Dragon went ahead and included this set of detailing with the tank, which is a very nice touch. The track looks identical to the other version, however, the cleats are going in the exact same direction. If you were building a standard Tiger 1, you would use the same track for each side, only when you rotate it, the cleats on the one side are going to be inverted. Now, obviously, this system does not really offer any benefits and is actually a hindrance, as now you have more of a supply issue in having two patterns of track that are not interchangeable for the same type of tank. This system was definitely dropped very quickly and is only found on the first initial production batches of German Tiger 1s. In addition to the Dragon kit supplying you with the actual track bands for the left and the right hand specific, this is also evident on the spare track as well. As you can see, the tank does have 2 rows of spare track. Each row is for one side and the other. The kit here does feature the very initial pattern of track rack, which used 2 straps to mount the tracks to the vehicle. This system here was phased out also in the upcoming variants to use a single bar to mount the track to the vehicle. This system here is a little bit more complex, as you actually have to undo fasteners in order to remove the tracks from their stowed locations. Moving our way to the back of the models, the detailing you see here is all stock from the Dragon kit, and no mods or tweaks were really made to the sections here. The Dragon kit is very nicely done and is very thorough in that not only do you have the correct pattern of mud flaps, but they also went ahead and gave you the very earlier pattern of blackout light. This light here is typical like you would see on a Kettenkrad or a Couple Wagon, as well as some of the other medium and lighter tanks made by the Germans. This pattern of light would be replaced in subsequent versions with the tubular style light. Moving up from the light takes us to the toolbox and the jack block. Like I mentioned in the other initial Tiger videos, for this pattern of Tiger here, they would be mounted in this location, which layout would eventually change due to the adaptation of the FIFO system. Moving towards the right-hand side takes us to the jack, as well as the antenna-based tombstone mount. And like I mentioned in the other videos, the Tiger was originally supposed to have its antenna located in this location here. However, from all the research I've seen and done on these vehicles, they were never used in actual practice. Moving our way to the exhaust. Now, this is one portion where the one I built for myself is different from the one for the commission build. The commission build unit is this version here with the shorter snorkel caps. A nice feature that the Dragon kit gives you is the ability to model the vehicle for that of a fording capability. The fording options include that of the retracting snorkel, as well as the extender tips for the exhaust. Now, if we notice, there are 2 versions that are supplied with the kit. We have the shorter ones here, which were requested by the customer, and the longer tips are the ones found on the one from my own collection. The pieces are slide molded, they are hollow, and what's nice about them is that they have their grill and louver detailing present. This is found on both the longer and the short pattern of exhaust covers. The exhausts themselves are also nicely done in that they have their puffer cap detailing, as well as all the other detailing which is found on the rear Tiger 1 exhaust manifold system. Moving our way to the side and front of the hull detailing, we'll start with the thinner front fenders. The thin front fenders that we see here are a feature which is found on these very initial production Tiger I tanks. The fenders you see here are actually photo etch with their German pattern diamond plate present. This is all stock from the kit, and the kit did a very nice job in articulating this piece here. Not only does it have the easy addition of the fenders, the kit also does not have the bosses present for the sprocket removal crane, which would be located in this section here for maintenance. This is true for the very first run of Tiger I's, as well as also the little notch that we have here on the front armor plate. The purpose of these two notches is that when the Tiger I was first developed, they were supposed to have a large armor slab which would pivot down and go in front of the vehicle to protect the tracks from incoming rounds. This design feature was only found on the very first pilot model of the Tiger I and was dropped as soon as the tank started entering limited and full production. However, on the initial production versions, the small little notch would still be present on the front plate, which again is kudos to Dragon for adding that little bit of detailing. As for the bosses, because of the type of stress that these pieces would undergo with removal of the heavy sprocket, it was deemed that this location here was weak and can possibly break. So on subsequent versions of the Tiger I, you will see a built-up welded ring, which is located on this portion here to give more material and strength for the sprocket removal crane. Also, while on the side of the vehicle, you will notice that this vehicle has no side skirts or any provisions for mounting on side skirts. This is as per the real vehicle, as when the Tiger I was first developed, no side skirt designs were thought of. These side skirts were a later design and came on the next batch of Tiger I's to follow the ones that you see here. With that version was also when we saw the replacement of the front fenders with the extended fenders in order to match up with the side skirts that would be mounted to the sides. It's because of these lack of side skirts which makes these initial pattern Tigers very unique in that the tracks are distinctively that they hang from either side and extend from either side of the hull. Also found on the Dragon kit is that of the weld marks, which are common for this pattern of Tiger. They have a tombstone style weld mark where the plates meet, as well as a small notch which is cut in the corner. Again, these details are discussed in more detail in the other initial Tiger I videos that I have on the channel. Moving our way to the front armor plate, all the detailing you see here again is all stock from the Dragon. The Dragon kit supplies you with a very nicely detailed MG34T for the bow machine gun. The bow machine gun can pivot left and right and up and down. And it's a nice feature done by Dragon, as typically larger scale models are the ones that typically have a pivoting machine gun. The front visor is also able to retract and open up, which is also a nice touch. However, on the model here with all the paint added, the piece is kind of fused in the open state. Now, this little bit of detailing here is a horseshoe. This was not part of the original tank from the factory and was added by the crew. The reason why this horseshoe was added was that specifically to make it for Tiger number 100, the crew did have this horseshoe here welded as a sign of good luck. Now, another bit of detailing that was not added was that to the machine gun cover. The kit, since it does have the snorkeling equipment, another piece of the equipment is that of a tarpaulin which mounts over the bow machine gun to prevent water from entering inside of the vehicle. However, this part of the detailing was not added to this build, as the machine gun detailing would have to be replaced. Moving our way to the rear engine deck of the model. The engine deck that you see here is all stock Dragon. One nice touch that the kit gives you is that of the photo etch grill covers, which is one less expenditure which needs to be exhibited by the builder to get from an aftermarket source. Now, one nice feature that the Dragon kit has is that there is a interior detailing of the fan work as well as the radiator and air intake. The intake itself is made out of photo etch brass, and the fans are also very nicely detailed and rendered for the scale. Now, the kit is also designed to have functional grill covers. However, just like with the torsion bar, the pieces for the hinge work is so finely molded that when it comes time to actually getting them to work and adding them in place, you will find that the plastic will snap very easily and very quickly. The hinges themselves are also not very well robust, as to make them robust, we'll have to tweak with the scale of the other components. However, this tank here is really more or less meant to be displayed either in the open or closed state. For the purpose of this build here, they have been modeled in the closed position here. However, in the lower corner, you will see pictures of the interior detailing during the build operation, and they can be seen through the grill work. However, it's just not very visible with the lighting situation that I have here right now. Moving our way to the cables and the tool layout. The cables and tools on this version here are also a lot different compared to that of your standard Tiger One configuration. Namely that of the tow cables, they are in the reverse state where the eyes are in the back rather than being in the front. Also, the gun cleaning staves are more towards the front of the vehicle as opposed to being in the center portion, sandwiched in between the tow cable equipment, which is found again on later incarnations of the Tiger One. Everything you see here is stock Dragon, and the tow cable, like I said before, is actually a real metal cable, which is a nice touch which was added for the Dragon kit. The tools you see here are also all stock Dragon. Some of them do feature photo etch components, which again is a nice touch again by Dragon. From the tools takes us to the bow headlights. The bow headlights again are all stock. However, the kit here is a very nicely rendered piece in that the power cable is an actual piece of small little wire with photo etch that needs to be added to assemble the detailing that you see here. As for the headlights, there are actually clear lenses located on the inside, which again is a nice touch. Now, there is a myth that the very initial production Tigers had the bow headlights located over the front fender in this section here and here. That is not true. The versions that had the bow headlights in these two forward sections were the vehicles which were sent to North Africa. The other tanks that were in Europe as well as in Russia did not feature the headlights in these two locations, and they were always located on the top of the hull in this format. This of course would change for the late and mid-production versions, which had a single headlight which was located in the front here of the armor plate. Moving our way to the tank's turret. The tank's turret that you see here is basically, again, stock Dragon. The stock Dragon kit does give you lots of different options available to build this kit in a few different configurations. This version here, of course, being that for Tiger number 100 with the iconic saddle bins that we have here located on each sides. The pieces are very nicely rendered and nicely detailed. Now the kit again also gives you provisions for mounting that of a Panzer III bustle bin, as well as another style of pattern. But again, you cannot put all of these bins on the vehicle. You have to pick between one or two different versions. Another nice feature that Dragon included is that of the dual pistol ports, which is a trademark piece found for an initial production Tiger One. The kit also supplies you with a few different options for the mantlet. For Tiger number 100, you have to have the small little plate, which is a sun visor guard, which was added by the crew in order to prevent glare from the gunner's periscope. Moving our way to the tank's smoke trajectors. The smoke trajectors you see here are the kit originals. However, they have been modified in having their firing cables, which have been added. The firing cables here were added by myself and are fabricated out of small pieces of wire, which were drilled into the housings, and then a matching conduit was needed to have been made to the turret. The addition of the cables really greatly helps the look of the build compared to its stock original configuration. Moving our way to the tank's 88mm gun. The gun itself is again all stock Dragon, and no mods need to have been made to it. The muzzle brake here is again stock, and the kit muzzle brake is very nicely done in that it has lots of smaller sub-assemblies that makes for a greatly accurate and nicely rendered component. Now, another interesting feature that the turret has is that the gun is actually spring-bound and can recoil. The feature is basically, it's an interesting one at that. However, it's doesn't really have any use or merit for a static model tank. But it's a nice little addition, I guess, that was supplied by the kit. Now, one side effect is that you don't want to continue to recoil the gun, as prolonged usage of the recoiling feature will eventually start adding wear and scratching up the paint where the barrel enters the barrel assembly. Moving our way to paint and markings, the paint that you see here is that of your standard German Panzer Gray for the early war period. As for the markings, they are all decals which were supplied with the kit. The kit's decals are a nice quality and went on and lacquered on with no issues. Another side note about the tank's pattern and markings is that because of the time period that these vehicles were made, you're going to be somewhat limited in terms of camouflage patterns. The vehicles here can either be painted in an all Panzer Gray, like the format that I have on these two examples, or you can paint them with a snow camouflage. It was the vehicles that came after the examples that you see on this table here, in which the patterns in the more traditional German colors that we all know of started to get applied. Overall, I'm pretty happy on how the two builds turned out. The base starter kit from Dragon was a very nicely done and well-engineered kit. And as you can see here, the two builds were built predominantly out of box, with the only addition, I believe, was that of the cabling for the smoke ejectors. As for a skill level, I really can't recommend these kits for someone who's a beginner, or even someone who has built a few smaller kits in the past, as these two builds here feature a very finely detailed and rendered plastic and photo etch components. These kits here are really meant for someone who's built a few versions of the Tiger 1 and are looking to level up for something a little bit more elaborate and a little bit more unique for that matter. Someone who's built all the versions from Tamiya and maybe even a couple of the simpler older versions from Dragon. Because of that, I recommend this kit to someone who is a advanced intermediate as well as an advanced modeler, as someone who definitely has had experience working with photo etch and smaller, finer pieces of plastic parts in the past. I also recommend this kit to anyone who's not only a fan of World War II armor, but again, of course, World War II German armor as well. Anyone who's also a hardcore Tiger fan definitely needs to have at least one or two of these kits in their stash, as this kit here, this particular version of the Tiger 1, is a interesting link in the Tiger 1's family tree. And what's unique about the kit itself is that you can get 2 or 3 versions of the same kit and build it into 2 or 3 different versions of the very initial first pattern of Tiger 1. And that concludes this model showcase video for this pair of 1/35th scale initial production German Tiger 1 heavy tanks. If you like this video, stop by and like us on Facebook, in which there are more pictures of these two vehicles, which are posted on the page. As well as don't forget to check out eastcoastarmory.com for more 1/6 and 1/16 scale builds and detail components. Thanks for watching.